You'd think there'd be a better way to do this ahead of time, right? You'd be right. There we are. There we are. Drag that around. How is everybody doing? Going a little early. Going a little early. Yes, I know. A little early. Oh boy. Where's the mic? How's the mic doing over there? Yeah, maybe not great. Yes, we have sound. Feel like this mic needs to be on the other way. There. Thusly. Maybe. I don't know. Hey. How you doing? Hey, good to see folks here. Cool. Very cool. Yeah. Just doing a little bit of cleaning up, doing a little bit of organizing, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Got the Polycar track skirt on. You really can't see here. I'll scoot it over for a second so you can see that all the Polycar track skirt. Yay! It looks better. Trust me, it looks better. Move this right about there. Lock that down. And there we are. Hey, grandson of man, how you doing, bud? How's everybody doing? Just getting stuff ready for a little bit of goofing around. Just, hey, Jay, how you doing? Nothing really too crazy planned today. Just wanted to do some laps. Wanted to get the Thunderslot Mustang back on the track. I've been thinking a lot about the Thunderslot stuff recently. Don't really know why, but I have. Yeah. There you go. Trackmaster 5000 in full effect. Whisk broom from Dollar Store. Naturally. Checking my mics. Should have Doppler effect on there. Polycar Digital, no. You will hear. It'll be on the Facebook page. There's nothing new to report about Polycar Digital. Sorry. Nothing new to report. I'm sure they're still doing it, but sadly, there is nothing new to report. How is everybody doing this fine Sunday? It's maybe a little too much over there. Making good use. Yes, Ron, yes. Making all the use. Did a bunch of cleaning on the track today. Mainly getting stuff kind of put away, organized a little bit better maybe. And yeah, and then the track skirt, the Polycar track skirt was the thing I did today. You should follow me on Instagram at SlotCar News, and you can keep up with. I'm going to be doing more posting there, posting of news photos and stuff, and some of the photos that I take. And I mean, it's not necessarily going to be all news, so to speak, but anyway. Yeah, and I put the picture of the new Polycar skirt on there, and I will be keeping it more up to date. Yeah, so there we are. And this week, I'm going to be going to New York City for Toy Fair at the end of the week. Very happy about that. That was like jumping through crazy amount of hoops to get my credential approved to go. It was extremely difficult. They're trying to cut out a lot of smaller YouTubers, I guess. So you had to have 50,000 subs. You had to have 50,000 subs to qualify just as a YouTuber. I will point out that the people giving me the credentials only have 1,800 subs. I have 7,600. It's like, you don't even meet your own criteria. It's ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. Whatever. Yeah. But I did get the credential. I'm going to be taking Thursday off because I have another treatment. It's sort of treatments I'm getting are sort of like, I mean, it's a mild version of chemotherapy. I don't have cancer. It's for the autoimmune condition that I have. And yeah, anyway, so I have the treatment Thursday, and then Friday, I believe Friday, I'm going to be going to New York. I'm going to be staying north of the city at a hotel, probably taking the train in. Then I don't know exactly yet. It's definitely going to be, if you ever been to New York, you know it's expensive as hell to stay anywhere there, and yeah, it's it's a lot. So I'm not sure exactly where I'm staying yet, but anyway. So then Saturday I plan to be there at Toy Fair. I do have meetings set up with Carrera and with Skeletric. As far as I know, they're the only two companies there. I can't imagine anybody else is there because New York Toy Fair is a toy fair. It's not a hobby show, so it's not a natural place for the slot car companies to go. So, yeah, I don't expect. I mean, maybe Auto World would be there because they do a lot of die casts. But I don't know. Hey everybody, thanks for coming in. I really appreciate it for the Sunday stream. This is kind of the usual streams that we normally do. If you could please give the stream a thumbs up. That helps YouTube suggest the stream to folks and helps me grow here on YouTube. Thank you very much. These tires. Talking about the Thunderslot Mustang today. Not really sure. I just figured. I don't know. I've been thinking about it a lot, and I figured I'd talk about it a little more on the stream today. So I took the thing apart. I really do like the way the body posts are mounted on here. We have 4 body posts right there, right there, right there, and right there. And then there's little cushioned, there's little like rubber grommets that they have on the screws that go in so that it cushions the chassis, which is a really interesting way of doing this. Going over the interior a little more, the chassis that is a little more. There is the regular kind of S-can in there. It's a sidewinder, of course. This is a very, very, very flexible chassis, which I think helps with hard track like this and with wood. Although I've never really gotten, I don't know. I've never really gotten, I've figured out why they make different types of flexi chassis and hard chassis and whatever. I don't know, but regardless, there's complete adjustment on this car. Everything you can imagine, you can adjust on this car. The guide is connected directly, as you see here, to the motor. So the chassis on either side can flex around that, which I think is a really kind of interesting design. I mean, I know this is done pretty regularly in commercial track racing. I'm not saying that this is hey Ro, I'm not saying that this is anything that's like totally crazy, like new, but it's good stuff. Yeah, a lot of folks have these. Hey DK, yeah, a lot of folks have these, and I wanted to talk about them not because they're necessarily new, but because I think we get awful caught up in kind of like what's the next thing, and I'm the worst for that, of course, too. It's like I'm like, hey, what's coming out? What's coming out? What's coming out? But we gotta remember sometimes that some of the stuff we already have out is kind of worth paying attention to again. And yeah, so I just wanted to talk about this car again, or these cars, because there's been quite a few of the Mustangs that are out. I got a blue copy. This was sent to me by Thunderslot. I did not pay for this car. They didn't ask me to say nice things about it. I do like it quite a bit. It's great fun to drive. It is large. It is. It's definitely an interpretation of a Mustang, but I think it's a nice one. I think it's worthy of attention. Not like me saying something is worthy necessarily makes it more or less worthy, believe me. But I personally think that they've done something really nice here, and I think it's a great car, and it's worth kind of circling back to, basically. One thing I did find interesting: the motor is screwed in, as you might know if you have these, and there are two screws at the end of the motor. No way you can see this, but I'm talking about it anyway. Sorry. This camera doesn't focus terribly closely. So there are two screws that hold in the motor. One of the screws hits the spur gear grub screw. So as the back axle would rotate, it will click as it's kind of hitting it as it's going around. So I just removed that screw today, right here, just to prove. I don't know why I have to prove I removed a screw, but there, I removed the screw. The car is now dead silent as it goes around my track. I love it. There's quite a bit of adjustment on this car that you're going to have to adjust for yourself. One thing that folks constantly ask me about is, why don't I have timing on my track yet? And why don't I do timing as part of what I'm doing here on Slot Car News? Well, I've given this answer a number of times. People don't find it very satisfying, but it's what I personally feel. How fast a car is on my track, how quickly I can drive a car, is pretty much irrelevant. I'm trying to show you all, I guess, the benefits of the car. I mean, obviously, most of what I do is news, so it's not like, track timing or whatever. I also don't like the idea of my personal slot racing, which I do sporadically here in the basement, to become a hey ragtop. No, not really. I just kind of started. I don't like my slot car racing or my slot car involvement to have anything to do with what I loosely call spreadsheets. Nothing can kill my interest in a subject quicker than math and keeping tally of this or that. I think that this is a hobby best enjoyed just for the enjoyment of watching a car go around the track, or watching a car go past some scenery, for example. And I just, at some point, I will have timing on my track. It's inevitable. However, it's not a real priority for me because I'm not doing real racing here. I'm just enjoying myself, putting cars around the track and having fun. And I personally think that's enough. And as I said, I mean, I know there's definitely a case to be made to have a leaderboard or whatever with relative times on it, so if a car falls within a certain speed class of car. Basically, there are only a few brands that really do kind of fall into the really high end of what I would consider the speed class. Okay. Thunderslot, NSR, Slot It, Polycar probably, Scale Auto, and I don't know. It's basically the hobbyist brands. Carrera is never going to be as fast as an NSR. If you have a Carrera car and it is as fast as an NSR, you're not tuning your NSR car properly. I'm sorry, but that's just the case. The same thing with Scalextric. I'm not saying they make bad cars by any stretch of the imagination, but they're not made to be fast. They're made to be kind of the everyman's car. They are fine cars to buy, but they are not out and out performance cars like the hobbyist brands are. I'm going to start a series probably soon addressing this and kind of what to expect. I don't want to give too much away because people have a tendency of copying me when I do these things. So there we are. So I've done a little bit of tuning on this car, but not really a crazy amount of tuning. Also, it feels as though, and it may just be the braid sticking up a little too high. It feels as though this chassis might be warped, which would be unfortunate. I think this is a glass-filled chassis, the plastic. So, oh no, okay. It's the body just kind of floating a little bit too much, maybe. Car does have a tremendous amount of forward bite and pickup. Easy car to accelerate down the straight. Tires do roll well. Let me just check my microphones here. What controller do I have? My microphone is already losing a bit of power. This is a DS controller. DS as in DS like the timing systems. This is a PM controller. They don't make this controller anymore, unfortunately. So I'm sorry. There are basic controllers that are a lot less money than this. This was about $120 controller, which is a fairly cheap controller. Professor Motor makes these controllers at a lower price, starting at kind of a lower price, that are way worth getting if you're wanting a little more of an upgrade than just kind of a Parma type controller with only one ohm rating on it. Boy, this car just hooks up left, right, and center. I do really love this car. Yeah, I know, DK. Yeah, I know. Today I'm just talking about the Thunderslot car, and I may get one of the other Thunderslot cars out just to kind of keep on topic of maybe one brand for a little while and not get too terribly scattered. I hope you understand. I mean, there's a lot of really. Oh yes, I forgot to mention MR slot car in the kind of hobbyist brands. I did forget to mention that. Yeah, so I am going to do kind of a series of videos. You all will see soon what I'm talking about, where I kind of address some thoughts about kind of what to expect, basically. Yeah, so they've released a whole bunch of these Mustangs. I think it's been fairly well documented that they're a little oversized, but they definitely scratch that Mustang itch, I would say. And a really nice performance car that we really haven't had before, because we really haven't had a true, hey, Chris, we haven't really had a true performance Mustang available to us until these folks released it. And I think it's a great, I think they did a great job. I think, there's, like anything, there could be improvements. But as far as the car goes, I think it's basically what it boils down to is, do you feel it's worth the money as a hobbyist? I personally do. And as I mentioned, I mean, I did not pay for this car. What size is my layout? My layout is, I think this is your Tom, right? So my layout is a, hey, Moondoggy. The table is 5 by 16 feet, 5 feet wide by 16 feet long. The table, I have a little bit left. I have maybe a foot left at this end, and well, essentially nothing left at the other end. So it's not quite the width of the table as you see. There's quite a bit left over there. Well, on the end down there, it is the entire width. Yeah, cool, Tom. Thanks for joining. I really appreciate it. So it's I just wanted a 2 lane track because I mean essentially it's just me here. It's not I'm never gonna have like real racing here. The guys that I do slot car race with or I did slot car race with, when I was able to drive the club I would race with from time to time, they're an hour away one way. And the job that I have now, I just can't do that every week. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's just me here. And I don't need a 4 lane track. I just needed a 2 lane track. Now we're about half power on this battery, so we'll keep an eye on it. Hopefully it, a 20 by 10 shed or a 20 by 12 shed. Yeah, I mean, I would think, yes, this is Polycar track, slot car heaven. And I just put my new Polycar. You can kind of see it. Track skirt on around the bottom of the track here. Yeah, so it's so I don't need a 4 lane track. 2 lane is more than sufficient. I mean, I could have just had a 1 lane track, quite frankly, because like I said, it is just me. Did I loosened the pod a little bit, and I also loosened the body, and it feels like it's a little better through the corners than it had been. Definitely slides a little better, I think. I think with the looser body, you get a little better vibration isolation, which is why you loosen the body and you loosen the pod on a car, is to smooth the car out. A really tight car, meaning tight, all the screws are tightened down, is going to be, in my findings, in my experience, a slow car. And loosening the car in the right places gives you a lot smoother car. And in this case, for sure, it's definitely smoother, definitely performs a little differently. It tends to slide out rather than de-slot in the hairpin down there, the tightest curve, which is kind of right here on my track, and makes the car a little more drivable. This car has the stock rubber tires. I really don't like the idea. Well, let me back up. On my track, yes, it's the Thunderslot Mustang. On my track, rubber tires work best. I have tried silicone tires on here. I have nothing against silicone tires, absolutely nothing against them. But I am very happy that. Oh, okay, no problem, Pat. Very happy that the rubber tires. There you go, Pat. It's just the blue one. Folks have seen these. Torque. So yes. What can I say about this? I will say that I am sure that more. I'm sure you're going to see more cars. Let's just say that. Don't think that that they've abandoned the Mustang and there'll only be Mustangs, or there'll only be those few Mustangs, or whatever. Just patience, guys. Okay. They're you're going to see more cars. Let's just say that. I mean, it's a kind of a basic chassis, right? It's kind of a standard chassis that has holes that are unused for a good reason. So I definitely think that that you're going to have a field of cars. Let's just say that. This car does run really, really well. As I said, yes, it is a little oversized. It absolutely does not bother me because this car is definitely kind of in a class of its own. With speed, it's going to just stomp any other Trans Am car from any other company. First of all, it's not a Trans Am car. It's a B production, I think. It's a Shelby, the GT350, which, correct me if I'm wrong, was not a Trans Am car. Or this body wasn't. I don't think. Almost positive. I don't know. On my track, the rubber tires work perfectly. I don't like the idea of necessarily suggesting to people immediately that they need to swap out parts or tires or whatever as soon as they buy a car, because that's a little disheartening to new folks who are trying to get into the hobby, especially if you're spending kind of $70 or more maybe on a car like this. I think these were more, right? You're spending a fair amount of money on this car, right? You don't want uh, to have the feeling like you spent a lot of money on a car, you spent some money on a car, some amount, whatever, and then immediately you have to change things to race it. I'm fortunate, I have Polo Car track. It's got very high grip. The grip will, any rubber tire basically will work, except maybe Carrera's stock tires, which are super hard. So, I think that, it's a perfect car for my track. It's fast, it's lightweight. You don't need any weight in the car to get the most out of it. It's really a beautiful little car. And I kind of wanted to highlight it again because, we really in the hobby, and I'm definitely guilty of this, like I said earlier, kind of what I do in the hobby now is the news, right? And most of my news, probably 95% of it, is about what cars are coming out. So, I'm just as much to blame as anybody, maybe probably more, talking about, kind of like looking past once we got one car. Oh, what's the next car? What's the next car? What's the next car? Well, every once in a while, I think it's important. And I think definitely a lot of the other YouTubers out there have done a great job of this. Raul talks about it all the time. Like, I have so many cars I need to review, or I want to review, or I just want to talk about, that I kind of wanted to stop and talk about a car that I had been thinking about quite a bit. And that was the Mustang, because, it's definitely an important car that we got. And yeah, there you go. I'm going to read some, just read some questions here, or some comments here. Careful, I took a lot of flack for what you're suggesting. Okay, well, I get a lot of flack regardless. So join the club. These ran at Daytona. Okay, they'd be in Trans Am class. Okay, well, there you go. Add a little bit of weight. Sure, you can definitely add a little bit of weight. Scale Racing does not make cars themselves. Scale Racing is a company. They don't make cars. Thunderslot, RevoSlot. I did forget to mention RevoSlot. Like I said, I will definitely be doing a video talking about brands and kind of, what each brand is, basically. So yeah. So how's everybody doing? Yeah, I've done a little bit of cleaning up. As you see, a little bit of straightening. I'm gonna keep that up now that the fall is here, and it's perfect here in the garage. It's not too terribly cold yet, and I am gonna unbury my wood track. I have a wood track over here. It's a small track. It's only 11 feet by about 4 at the one end, so it's not a huge wood track. It's 3 lanes. My uncle made the track for me years ago. Sorry. He made the track for me in about when we moved back to New York from San Francisco. I guess in about 2003, 2004, he made the wood track for me. And it's a great little track. He made the track basically just so I could do, I could run cars at home and do tuning, because I was racing with a club in New York City, and we raced on a very small wood track that we would put together from time to time. And wood track racing is definitely where it's at. The track is it's so hard and unforgiving that it really makes you into a better tuner, because if you don't have magnets, and I have tape on my track, not Magna braid, You really have to know how to smooth a car out, whether it's replacing everything in the car that is making it vibrate or whatever. But yeah, I mean, like these Thunderslot cars, they are absolutely made to be wood track cars. They're just gorgeous. Oh yeah, Chris, no problem, man, no problem. Yeah, I've had a pretty long week um, at work as well. Two Thunderslots also that I have. I have one more back there. These are the Can-Ams. These are absolutely gorgeous little cars. Um, I mean, the performance on these is just it's extraordinary. A lot of folks know about these cars and love them, and I think they've kind of picked up the gauntlet Thunderslot has. Yeah, right, Top. I'm feeling okay. I got another treatment this week. I go to New York City on Friday. At least I think on Friday probably, and I have a. It's kind of like chemotherapy, um, but it's a much lower dose, and I only have two of them. This is my second dose, and yeah, I'm feeling pretty good. Still waiting for the effects of the surgery I had earlier this year, which took out a gland in my chest, and yeah, it's a process when you're trying to work through a uh, issue like I have with the autoimmune condition. Anyway, I don't know that I would change much on this car. Of course, if I was really racing the car with a club, there might be rules about what you could change, and then you'd figure out what other people are doing to make the car fast, and then you'd see really if you needed to change things. Uh, I don't really know. I mean, to the way I have the car and the way it performs on my track, it feels like a solid car, one that I can control really well. And that's usually what I go for because I'm really not a good driver. I like a car to feel good while I'm driving it. If it's too fast, uh, I have a hard time driving it. And so I need the car kind of in the sweet spot where it's not maybe overly fast, but very easy to drive. And I think probably folks know what I mean because I mean I know you all do a lot of tuning, and it's definitely something that you have to be careful of. Um, Making a car too fast and difficult to drive, it's not the recipe for success for me, quite frankly. So that's why I usually have something that's maybe a little underpowered and something very controllable. And this car, pretty much as it is. Now, there would be tuning that I would do based on the track that I would be on to see where, if I could do more faster lap times, that sort of thing. Chris asks, never really raced on wood. Do you think that a properly set up plastic chassis can compete with a scratch built brass chassis? Just curious. So yes and no. Yes, a plastic car could be made to run fast. I wouldn't probably have them compete one against another because I think there would be too much of a disparity in some way between the two different kinds of builds. I haven't tested this. I think this would be fairly easy to figure out if you were at a club. I assume you're talking about something like a Revo slot, against something like a slot or an NSR. I don't know what the relative speeds would be, comparing the two. So I can't give you a real answer about that. I would hesitate to do that. That's the short answer. I would hesitate to think that. I would think that the aluminum chassis, just because the weight is so much lower, metal chassis, you'd be able to do a lot with the weight and the center of gravity and make the car very, very fast because the center of gravity is super low. Yeah, so it's kind of a long way around it, but I wouldn't do that myself. Okay, so track skirt. I knew that this would come up. I got this track skirt through a dealer who'd ordered it directly from Polycar. I don't know how Polycar Slot It are going to handle requests for track skirt. We had to pay to ship the skirt to the US. I got enough of the skirt, just enough of the skirt to put around most of my track. It's not all the way around, obviously, because there's no point in having it on the back. So I had just enough to put down the front, and then the one at the one end down there. So I didn't pay for the skirt, but the dealer that ordered it from Polycar had to pay quite a bit of shipping to get it. They told me. So skirt comes in uncut rolls, basically. I think I asked for 30 feet of it. I have an NSR skirt and I have a slotted skirt as well that are going to go up on the wall over here where you see the flags. I'm going to take those down, and it's just going to be track skirt. So it's a little simpler thing to look at rather than the flags hanging there, because it's a little busy. The flags were never really meant to be a permanent thing, just as kind of a thing to hide the wall, because it's a cinder block wall here in my garage. This is a little over a 2-car garage. It's a deep 2-car garage. It's not really 2.5. Anyway, it's a deep garage. So, and I mean, shit, I could probably fit 2 Fiats in this my 500s. Not that I have to, but I almost definitely can fit 2 nose to end here. So anyway, just looking at more questions here. Yeah, guys just saying that they like the Polycar stuff. Or the Thunderslot stuff. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely great stuff, and it's cool that the people that started Thunderslot, or one of them, had a connection with NSR. So I don't know the full connection. I don't know what this guy's role is in the company. So if he does have a role, so I don't want to get too far over my skis about that. But like I said, I did want to, I'll stop it so you can hear the motor and the gear mesh. Here, listen. Definitely quiet. It's a very quiet car. And it's definitely, when it's going around the track, it's quieter than that when you have the back end lifted up and it's free rolling. It's definitely noisier than when you're having to go around the track. It's a whisper quiet car, which is great. We like our quiet cars, quiet and smooth, and just so controllable. And with the what's this, a 21,000? Yes, 21.5 at 12 volts, 175 grams of torque. And it's got nylon crown and pinion, or spur and pinion, which also helps the quietness. Whoa, a little bit of a D-slot there. A little kick out here and there, but it's easy enough to control because, I mean, it's just, you can just put this car anywhere on the track that you want. It's definitely, there's definitely a lot of performance left in this car that I don't think I'm getting out. But like I said, I'm not doing real racing here. I'm just driving around, enjoying myself, talking to you all on the internet. And that's good enough for me. Absolutely good enough for me. Get a little speed spit on here to clean the tires, because there's definitely a little bit, and I definitely should do a little more tire truing. There's absolutely a little bit of shine still on an area here that probably I'm not making the best contact, but for sure we're making enough that it's fast. Yeah, there we go. It's definitely. Yep, absolutely better. Around the hairpin, the car just scoots right around. There's no tail out. When the tires are clean, you can see a definite performance increase. That mechanical grip when the tires are clean, nicely sanded, the car just snaps right around the corner, no issue whatsoever, no slide, and that's when you know you're on the right track with tuning, and just the smoothness. It's quiet. Any kind of noise that you hear in a car, you want to try to isolate that noise. Where's that noise coming from? And if you can get rid of that noise, figure out what it is. You take the body off, and if the noise goes away, then maybe there's something hitting in the body. And hey, Gary, yeah, I'm definitely feeling better. So it's definitely, you want to isolate noises in the car, because basically any noise, any clicking that you hear, ticking or bumping or thumping or anything that you hear, any of that kind of stuff is robbing you of speed, basically. So first thing to do is take off the body, hold the chassis, hold the guide in the slot, lift up the back end, listen to the back end on the car, see if there's any noise coming from that. It should be really, really quiet or fairly quiet. Oil it, oil the gear, oil the bearings, oil the end bells and the motor. I mean, this is all real basic stuff. Most folks here probably know this, but it's definitely worth repeating, because it's, this is stuff that you always need to do with cars, regardless of the brand. Regardless of the brand, you need to do this kind of thing. Oh, hey, a bunch of people commenting. Darren, hey, cheers. Thanks for showing up. We've seen a real mix of brass versus plastic cars in many proxy races. Yes, at Viking. Oh, yeah, Viking Slot Car Club. Very cool. Yeah. Just enhancing a standard NSR car with their aftermarket pods. It makes for a great. Yeah. Slot Car Misfits says he likes my simple layout. Yeah, I mean, I gotta have. I mean, I don't like tracks snaking around on top of each other. I like it. It's meant. The track is meant to be take advantage of as much of the table as possible without kind of doubling over on top of itself. Because I don't really like the look of that. I mean, if folks like it, then great. But just for me personally, I'm not a big fan of that look. So that's why I went with kind of filling the table with as much of the track as I could without kind of it being a spaghetti bowl, basically. Bob L says, for home track, if you were just starting out, would you go with wood or plastic? Absolutely not. I would not go with wood. No. Don't. If anyone ever tells you go with wood, stop listening to them, and I'll tell you why. And I need to be clear about this. Once you have a wood track done, it's done. If you're new in the hobby, you don't know what you like yet. You don't know what corners are going to feel good. What, if you want a crossover, if you want elevation changes, wood tracks are great, but they're not a good place to start, because once it's done, it's done. You can't experiment with a wood track. Please, especially if you're new. I mean, if you've been in the hobby for a while and you know what you want, by all means, absolutely do what you want. But if you're just getting into the hobby, buy a set that you like the cars in, or buy a set that you hear for whatever reason is a good value. Personally, I have. So I don't know if you know my background, Bob, but I mean, it's not necessarily that you need to. I've worked at 3 different companies. I have lots of track available to me. I own still a lot of Skelectric track. I own a fair amount of Carrera track. I mean, I don't know, more than 100 feet probably. A friend is borrowing it. He uses it at the club that I used to race at. He's got a big 4-lane Carrera track, and a lot of it's mine. I have a lot of Carrera track here, or Skelectric track that I just don't use because I don't like the grip level. I don't like how narrow it is. I was given a Polycar set and track from Hornby, the company I used to work for, Hornby America, when they were the distributor for Polycar. However, I choose to have Polycar only because I love the grip level. It is a hard plastic track like Carrera's. It is not quite as wide as Carrera, but it is much, much better track in my opinion because it is high grip track. Carrera's track is kind of medium grip. Skelectric track is fairly low grip. I don't care what anybody says. It is just low grip, especially compared to Polycar or even Carrera, frankly. There's a little bit more grip on Carrera, not nearly as much though. So if you're just getting into the hobby, I mean, you can't make a bad choice, Bob. You can make different choices. And if you like a Skelectric set that's got 2 great cars in it, buy that set. Don't go by what, I'm telling you, you might prefer the way the Skelectric track looks. By all means, buy the set then. You should Slot Misfits. I think I already answered that question. No, there is no. Oh, Asher University asked that. No Polycar digital news yet. Just keep looking on the Polycar page. There will be news there. They don't give me news ahead of time that I would know something that isn't posted officially. So there you go. So if you're just getting in the hobby, buy a set. Look around at different retailers. There are only a few different sets made each year, and there are lots of sets available every year, and just base it on what you think you want to do. If you like the cars in the Polycar set, buy that. I personally feel Polycar is the best track to invest in. Look at the track as an investment, Bob, not as just the set. Because you're really, regardless of what you put on the track is really kind of the thing. After you get it down, you may not think about it from day to day. You may think about cars more from day to day. But definitely track it's a big investment. So, I definitely think you should weigh it with the cars that come in the set, because any analog car can be raced on Polycar track or Carrera track or Skelectric, with some exceptions. Skelectric track has more limitations because of the width of the track. It's really narrow. So very wide cars, like some slotted stuff, are going to be really tight on the track. You're not going to be able to race 1/24 scale cars, pretty much of any type, on Skelectric track. Also, the guide slot, where the slot where the guide goes, also is a little. How do I put this? It's a little inconsistent because Skelectric track is soft plastic and it can be bent. So unless it's laid perfectly flat, and unless the rails are set perfectly snug into the track, sometimes you can see a variation in the slot in Skelectric track. It is a very tight slot, and that's why for Carrera cars, you see that they'll sometimes jam in Skelectric. So because the slot is so wide, and Carrera's guide is so wide, or so narrow, I should say, with Skelectric slot. Hopefully folks are following me. Sorry. So you probably have more flexibility, let's say, with Polycar and with Carrera track as far as what type of cars you can run. If space is a consideration, like if you have a very narrow space to work with, like less than 4 feet wide, you really can't run much Carrera track on the track. Let's just say that, because it's the minimum you can fit Carrera into is about 38 inches from track edge to track edge. On the outside, there's the base for Carrera sticks out a little bit, so it goes over a little more. So space is a consideration. Go with Scalextric or go with Polycar. Basically, my suggestion is go with Polycar because you have high grip, high quality track. That all the molds for the Polycar track were made within the last few years, like within the last 4 years. It's a very new brand of track, and the track fits together perfectly. Once you put the track together, there are no gaps end to end on the track. When it fits together, you can lift up a small track in one piece easily, like a small kind of oval. You could lift it up in one piece because of the joiners. There are joiners that go in the sides of each joint and hold the joints together very, very tightly. And once those joiners are in, the track is really nailed together well. Definitely better than Scalextric. Probably on par with, I'd say, Carrera. But it's definitely there's a lot more to say about Polycar. I think a lot more positives to say. And as far as I am concerned, there really isn't any negative to it. Maybe the one negative would be you can only use the fence on the border section. Because if you have, this is the white, hey, Mike, cheers. The white fencing, you can only put you can only put the fence onto the border pieces. You can't put the fence directly onto the side. Yeah, Jono. I think he was talking about larger scale. I mean, I don't have opinions on HO. If folks want to do HO, that's great. I'm not currently an HO person. I had HO when I was a kid, just like probably everybody did. I had Tyco slotless, and I loved it. But yeah, so anyway, so that's the long version of why Polycar. There's a lot of Polycar available in the U.S. right now. A lot of different dealers have the sets available, and well, there's a 2-lane set that comes with cars, and then there's a 4-lane set. Basically, it's people make up the set out of loose boxes, and they there you go. I want to do digital and analog instead of the expensive Omni slot box. I mean, yeah, I don't know what to tell you about that. I'm not a digital person, as such. I don't have anything against digital, and I know the Omni slot box is a well-made product. Polycar will do digital. This is not digital. This is analog. Analog means 1 car per lane. If you have 2 lanes, you can drive 2 cars. Digital means you can race. You're racing the car, not the lane. Okay, so you're driving the car individually, regardless of which lane it's in, up to however many lanes wide. Polycar, you can make up the track up to 10 lanes wide. Carrera, you can make the track up to 8 lanes wide. Scalextric, I believe it's 8 lanes wide as well. Scale Auto is making track as well. That is very nice track, but it's not really much availability in the US yet. I would recommend Polycar. They will be making digital at some point, but I don't know. I don't think there's definitely I don't think there's any, for me anyway. How should I put this? I don't have the need to have digital. I don't feel like it's lacking something for me in the enjoyment to have digital. So analog it is, and any analog car will work. I don't consider it a gimmick necessarily, Bob. I understand what you're getting at, but I wouldn't consider it a gimmick. I don't know. I mean, it's good stuff. If you want to do digital, do digital. But at the moment, you can't do it with Polycar easily. You can do it, but not really. Well, no, you can't do digital because they don't have lane changes yet. I don't think. No, they don't have lane changes. They've been working on lane changes. The lane change is 2 track sections long. Okay, yeah. Well, so Misfits makes the point that that Professor Motor has the 4-lane set. Yes, but what the set really is individual boxes that make up the pieces of a 4-lane layout. You understand the difference? I don't think it's all comes in one box. It doesn't, like, there's no, here's the Polycar 4-lane set with a glossy cover or whatever. So there's no, if you buy the 4-lane set from Professor Motor, it's individual boxes of pieces of track to make up the layout that is a 4-lane layout. You get it? It's not really, that's why it doesn't come with cars, because it's just brown boxes as far as I know. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, you can always start with a basic starter set, a 2-lane set, and then add on to any company you can do this with. And that is always the most economical way to start with layout, is to start with a basic starter set and then buy another starter set to add on. And basically, if you cost out the price of track, and then you get extra controllers, you get an extra power supply, just in case. The cars usually work out to be free in the set, so it's always a great way to start out. To start out with the set that you like the cars in, and you kind of balance that with the track that you like, and then build onto it with available pieces or another starter set. And as Slot Car Misfits mentions, they have Polycar have a 4-lane set. Well, the 4-lane set is just pieces of track that if you just made the track 2 lanes, you'd have a really big 2-lane track, right? Instead of a one smaller 4-lane layout. It's just all in how you put the pieces of track together. So there's no, you're not losing anything by buying a 4-lane set. You can only put it together in 4 lanes. It's not the case at all. Absolutely not the case at all. You can just put it 2 lanes, use it 2 lanes, and you have a mother of a set then, and you're good to go and enjoy. See what other people are saying here. I like what I see with Polycar, but currently Carrera have a fair bit more of Carrera. Oh, okay, Mike. Yeah. I mean, it's definitely, it's an investment for sure. And once you get invested in a system, you should probably stay with that system. I don't love the idea of people switching track systems once they've invested in a system. Like I say, I don't think there's any wrong choices that you can make in a slot car set. Nobody makes bad track. There's no bad choices. There are different choices, and some of them I personally think are more important. But if I wanted to put up a Skelectric track, I could do it. I have a lot of track from them, and I'm sure I'd have fun with it. And yeah, I'd enjoy it. It's a different experience, and in my opinion, in my experience, I just like the Polycar stuff better, and that's why I choose to have it on my table permanently with no one else, no other brand, basically. Any other questions or comments here? Yeah, DK says there's might be some trade-offs that you make, and that's definitely, it's definitely the case with anything. There's always trade-offs that you make with from one brand to another of pretty much anything, right, guys? There's no such thing as perfect. Um, and in this case, it's definitely. I think people tend, and I mean, in any hobby, people get really kind of emotional about each brand, and I'm certainly partial. I'm partial to what I'm partial to, just like anybody else. So, I have my personal opinions, and there are trade-offs here and there that, you know, I actually really prefer what Skeletor Track looks like when you have it laid out. I love the I love the borders that Skeletor have, the look of the borders. I love the fencing that they have. They have nice new red and white fencing that looks really, really nice, I think. So I like the model that the Skeletor Track makes when you put it together. I think it looks most like a real racing track. I mean, Polycar looks great, and there's no problem with it, but it's not modeled to look like anything other than a slot car track, which is fine. So if that's the most important thing to you, then that might be the deciding factor. Is kind of, as DK mentions, I think it's perfectly reasonable that, if you wanted that if you value maybe more scenery, or the way the track looks more, because like Carrera track all has a dotted line down the middle. Show me a racetrack where there's two lanes and a dotted line down the middle. You can't do it. There's no dotted line down a racetrack the entire way around. There might be dotted lines here and there, but not every way around. Misfits asks, Dave, can all digital cars run on Polycar analog track? No. So if you have a Skeletor car and you have the DPR, the digital plug in there, you have to take the digital plug out and put the analog plug back in, I believe, right? I don't have any Skeletor digital to test, so I can't say that. With Carrera, however, yes, you can, because there's a switch. This is the thing that a few extremists follow me around and scream at me about. There is a switch under the car that switches the digital car to analog mode, and then once it's in analog mode, you can use it to run the opposite direction if you so choose. I don't know why you would do that necessarily. And digital racing is only meant to be raced in one direction, so technically it is not a polarity switch in digital, because you are not meant to run Carrera digital backwards from the intended direction, period. And I'm sick of a few people being jerks to me about something that I am sure of, and that Carrera, the designer at Carrera, told me specifically. And if anyone doubts me, I'm sorry, I don't care. You're wrong. Anyway, so you can switch a Carrera car from digital to analog and put it on the track. And yes, you can drive it on this track. SCX digital, you absolutely cannot. Most people don't have SCX digital these days, unfortunately, because it's a proprietary system with a plunger that has to be taken out in the guide, and it's so blah blah blah. So, yes, I know, DK. Trust me. And if you put them in backwards, they won't work, and there'll be problems with the system. And I work for Carrera, and I talked with the designer of the system, and there's all this parsing of words that people get into over what I've said over the years and how I've been misinforming and lying to people. These guys have never been in the business. They're only people they're committed hobbyists, which is great, but they don't talk to anybody at home office Carrera, never talk to the designers. They've talked to themselves and convinced themselves that I'm wrong. Well, I'm not. I'm frankly sick of it. Arn Toft asks or comments, I know you run on 9 volts. Yes. I have a Apollo car track as well, but bump up some NSR cars. Run on 12 volts, and some cars from NSR and Skeletal stop after 16 laps. I don't know why they would stop. I would suggest that if they are stopping, there's some other problem. I have the Polycar power supply actually right over here. It's a really pretty robust, if somewhat small, power supply. Oh, let me ask you this. Are you running with multiple magnets or magnets at all, multiple magnets, and also higher amp draw motors, more than stock motor, like 35,000 RPM or the really hot motors? If that's the case, then probably you're drawing too much power through the stock power supply. And yeah, I mean, the cars are meant to be used stock, not with multiple magnets or with the higher power motor. So comment, please, Arn, if that's the case. And maybe that's why. And we can figure that out for you. In any case, Jesse asks, do you ever run any old cars like Strombecker? I do not have. I have a couple vintage cars. When I have as an old Revell monogram or monogram Porsche 904, I don't run it because the body is far too brittle. But I could just use it on my track. The power supply, I have a hold on. I still have the box. I still have the power supply box. I don't think I do. It is a power supply that I got from LEB Hobbies. It is an adjustable power supply. Here, let me look really quick. Hey, my wife's home. She went out. Oh, yeah, she just closed the door. I'm going to give you guys. Oh, here it is. Tech Power. This is where I got the power supply. Hey, Dave, cheers. Thanks for showing up, Slaughter. That link will take you to the power supply that I bought. It's a switching adjustable power supply. I have it set to 9 volts. 9 volts on my track is more than adequate. No reason for me to have any more power on this track than that. I can easily deslot any of these cars going around the track with just 9 volts. And as I said, I'm not racing here. I'm just kind of enjoying the cars going around. Cars stop due to overheating from motors. Yeah, so that's a problem. Motors shouldn't overheat like that. I don't need jumper cables. Darren Kurd asks, I need jumper cables. No, I don't have that much track out here. I think the straight is maybe 12 feet long. So doubling that's about 24 feet plus maybe about another 4 feet. So maybe 30-ish feet of track. I don't really have a lot of track on the table, guys. So for me, I don't need them. But as Darren Kurd suggests, I mean, they have 80 feet of track. Absolutely, you'd need, I would suggest no less than 2 sets of jumper wires. I mean, I would think that would be adequate if there are no gaps in your track. If you have more than 2 sets, I don't think you would need. I mean, if you had 3 or 4 sets, I think that's probably overkill. But go with God if you want to do that. That's fine. But I definitely think that that would be sufficient. No less than 2 sets of jumper wires. And jumper wires, I have a video about this. start from basically the base track piece and radiate out from there to the furthest points on the track, not from track piece to track piece to track piece. Yep, Darren says that, yeah, they have two. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be really, honestly, more than sufficient. So it's a radiating out like the sun, like rays of light from a central point, not a daisy chain. Jumper wires do not go from track piece to track piece to track piece to track piece. It's called a daisy chain. And while it will help continuity, it does not help with fall off of power at the furthest point on the track, which is where you're trying to get the power to. That's because the power, if you have any gaps, and I mean any, that you can get a piece of paper between your track pieces, that's a problem. And you need to fix that. And if you can't fix it because of your layout, then you definitely need jumper wires. 100% you need jumper wires. But for me, I don't need them for two reasons. My track fits together perfectly tightly. There are no gaps at all. And I don't have that big a track. If I had double the amount of layout, I might put jumper wires, one set of jumper wires in, but I don't need it in any case. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why those cars would be stopping. If the cars are overheating, if the motors are overheating, I'm wondering if you have multiple magnets on the cars. The motor shouldn't overheat. Rarely have I had a motor go bad. In more than 20 years of being in the hobby in the modern era, since 2000-ish, I've had nearly no motors go bad. I've had maybe 2 slotted motors go bad. I've had maybe 4 or 5 SCX motors go bad. Keep in mind, I worked for SCX. I've had hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of SCX cars go through my hands at races that I've held or races that I've done or cars that I've taken apart to explore, whatever. So, I mean, I've had more cars go through my hands with the companies that I've worked for than most people ever will own, especially SCX. And yeah, their motors do fail. All motors can fail, but I've had very few of their motors completely fail. Slottets, I think I had maybe 2. One that I can remember for sure because it smoked. I've never had an NSR motor fail, or the other brands essentially never had a Carrera motor fail, or a Scalextric motor fail. Nothing. Misfits, slot car Misfits of all scales. Yes. Dave, I have an adjustable power supply that came with the set. Okay. How much track would that be good? So, you're with your Polycar. I mean, so I had the original Polycar power supply on this for quite a long time, and it was fine. And I used NSR cars on here and slotted cars on here. And I mean, the track is made by Slotted and Polycar are the same company. So the power supply is more than adequate for what you're doing, Tom. I mean, you got the power supply with that set. It came with 2 power supplies, right? One for one base, one for the other, and you kind of put the bases back to back or offset or whatever, and that's how you have the bases together. So one power supply runs 2 lanes and one runs the other 2 lanes. That'll be fine for the layout that you have. That's a decent amount of track, but those power supplies will be absolutely just fine. So I wouldn't really worry about power unless you see some kind of drop off on the back side of the track where you're standing and then you're driving the car around the track and you see it slow down or you feel it slow down. And I think, you really need to understand that, upgrading a power supply, while it's something you could do, you may not see any benefit at all from doing it. So I don't know, I'm a little hesitant to tell you, oh yeah, upgrade your power supply. You might do it. You spend, $100 on a power supply, whatever you spend. You spend some amount of money wiring up the track for controller stations. Slot Car Corner made these controller stations for me, and the wiring loom, it was a breeze to put together, an absolute joy to put together. I'm not an electrician. I don't know anything electrical. I am like the least handy kind of guy with that stuff. My uncle helped me put it together, and I could have done this myself. It was so easy, and it's freaking mil spec, bulletproof, fantastic stuff. And when I put the power supply on, the only thing I felt was that it added more adjustability between, different stops. And I know the Polycar has the clicker on there where you can adjust the power for it, but it didn't really feel like it changed that much. What did change was obviously I can use real better controllers now, not the standard kind of the thumb plunger controller that comes with the Polycar set, which honestly is adequate for most folks. And if you're just goofing around with your kid, then it's perfectly fine. Anyway, talking about motor failures. Some people are talking about motor failures here. Yeah. Darren says, of course, these motors run 3 to 12 hour endurance races without missing a beat. So something is amiss with motors after they die after 16 laps. 100%. Yeah, I mean, I've done 5 24-hour races, and you do have motor failures in 24-hour races because the motors are under extreme use, an extreme use case. But, as Darren mentions, and I absolutely agree with what he says, most of these slot car motors are going to last you your lifetime. Some motors might be a little slower than others, and that's to be expected. Slot car motors are not, generally speaking, very, very expensive things to make. And the tolerances on a Scalextric and a Carrera motor tolerances meaning the operating range can vary as much as 10 to 15%. So you may have a motor that runs 18,000. You may have a motor that runs 16,000. You may have a motor that runs 23,000 because the motors are not made for Carrera and for Scalextric. They're the industrial use for the typical kind of slot car motor. I mean, they might have them made for them now, but that size of motor actually you can find in some toothbrushes, and in car mirrors, in the motors that power a real car, power mirrors. So that's where the real industrial use is, not in slot cars, because there's far fewer slot cars made than there are real cars made. Anyway, see if there's any other. Yeah, regulated, and also the switching power supply, which mine is not a regulated power supply, but it's definitely a clean power supply, and there's no power surge. Yeah, I mean, a regulated filtered power supply is always going to be the best. But there you go. Dave says, sometimes power drop-off isn't in the track. It's the rails aren't flat. Exactly. And he's had this with Carrera track. Oh, I have too, and absolutely with Scalextric track as well, which is why I like hard plastic track, because like in the Polycar track, you can easily see if the rails are not set evenly in the track. With Scalextric track, it's pretty obvious. Some of it, I mean, it's just the track might not lay perfectly flat, and if it doesn't lay perfectly flat, then that twist is going to mean inconsistency in power. Now, this is really, really picky stuff to discuss. So I'm not saying that they make bad stuff, but when you get into the very high level of discussion about what causes certain problems with things, sometimes it's the track, sometimes it's braid, the things we're talking about with the cars stopping on the track. And in this case, we talked about the one guy mentioned. that the motors got hot and the motors failed, quote unquote, failed. Well, if the motors are getting hot, like too hot to touch, there's a problem, because these motors get hot and then they really shouldn't get hotter than their normal operating range, and they shouldn't ever be too hot to touch. If there's too hot to touch, there's a definite problem with the motor. Other things that can happen, as Slaughter says, as Dave says, is braids might not be making good connection. This is definitely something that happens with Carrera a lot because of their guide design, which is not great, I'll be honest with you, because the face of the braid is not touching the track. If you look at what they suggest, is they suggest you curl down the tail ends of each of the 4 tabs so the tabs touch the track. Well, what you're getting then is the worst possible interface connection, that is between the braid and the track, is just the tips of the wires of the braid. That is a horrible connection. You want the whole face of the braid as it's touching the rail on the track to be touching that, and that's the whole face of that braid, the surface area of the braid needs to be all flat on the track. Well, the way Carrera designed their guide system, it can't be, because the part where the braid is pushed into the car, like the face of that is way high out of the slot, and it shouldn't be. And when I worked for them, I tried to explain why it needs to be lower, and they didn't like this discussion, so they tabled it, and we never discussed it again. But anyway, it's something that is unfortunate in their design. Anyway, that's the long and the short of things. This week, as I mentioned at the beginning, is Toy Fair in New York City. I'm going to be going to Toy Fair in New York City. I probably will do my news. I will record it from home Thursday night, because Friday morning after I have my chemotherapy treatment, I don't know. I don't know exactly what how I'm going to be feeling, and I don't want to do the news from New York from Toy Fair because I don't anyway. So maybe Friday I might have a brief update from Toy Fair, depending on when I get to New York. Saturday I will be recording interviews with Carrera of America. I expect there will be some big news there. I don't know what I'm going to be allowed to talk about. I may be able to shoot some stuff that I can hold until they do their announcements. So there may be some big breaking news there, maybe from Carrera. I believe I'm going to have some prototype samples that I can shoot from Skeletric. So there may be some interesting news there as well. I'm going to be recording interviews both with Carrera folks and with Skeletric folks. I'm going to be doing kind of a walk around of Toy Fair, so you all can see kind of what I've seen for years doing the trade show there. It's a pretty interesting place. Unfortunately, most of the booths, or a lot of the booths from the bigger companies, are not open, so I won't be able to see them. You have to have an appointment, and I don't rate to have an appointment with like Lego or Mattel or anything like that. So there we are. The trip to New York is going to be fairly expensive. I put in the Buy Me a Coffee link, because if you want to donate, that is a way you can donate. If you want to send me PayPal, that is my email at slotcarnews@yahoo.com. slotcarnews@yahoo.com is my PayPal. If you want to send me a tip or thanks or however you want to put it, it's greatly appreciated, so I can offset some of the costs. It's going to be a couple $100 for a hotel for 2 nights, some money for food. I hesitate to say a couple $100, but you never know. And gas and parking. It's New York City. Nothing is cheap. Nothing is cheap. So if you want to donate, that's great. If you don't want to donate, that's okay too. I appreciate folks watching, coming by, giving the stream a thumbs up. Means quite a bit, and I'm happy to have people just stop by and chat and talk. It means everything to me. It really does, folks. So there we are. Any last couple questions here? Yeah, I don't. As far as I know, there are only two two companies that are going to be there. Just Carrera and Skelectric. If there are other people there, I will be happy to talk to them. I may talk to some diecast folks while I'm there too. They are always there. If some HO folks are there, I'm 100%, like Auto World sometimes does show up. 100%, I'm going to talk to them. 100%, I'm going to talk to them, and I'll do an interview with them. I definitely think, it's the bulk of what I'm going to be doing on the interviews I'm going to be recording on Saturday are with Carrera and Skelectric. And, that's what I expect. And I'll kind of have the videos cut together probably by the following week. And I may do something quick from Toy Fair, but, it's definitely going to be a little after the fact. Please give the stream a thumbs up, though. Regardless, I really appreciate everyone stopping by. 62 people. I was a little earlier than normal, but gonna spend a little time with the fam too. So I really appreciate it, guys. And like I said, if you want to donate, the buy me a coffee or through the email to PayPal, it is very much appreciated. Thanks again, folks, and I will see you all again on Friday.